roadblock in our fight against COVID-19 as shipments of vaccine get delayed.
It's troubling. It's a massive concern.
The Premier frustrated and furious with vaccine doses already dwindling and today's announcement that Canada will not be getting any shipments next week. Plus,
Shane lived in the area, was simply returning home from work.
More than 3 months after Shane Stanford was gunned down, Toronto police releasing new information, including description of a third suspect. And
the majority of cultures show love through food.
A Toronto restaurant owner is included in the UN Refugee Agency's new cookbook, the beloved recipe she chose to share and why. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Well, the country's fight against COVID-19 has hit a major speed bump. Federal officials said today Pfizer-BioNTech won't be shipping any doses of their vaccine to Canada next week. This slowdown affecting vaccination plans across the country. Now, in Toronto, the city's first vaccination clinic has been ordered to shut down immediately. It had just opened yesterday. Ali Chiasson has more.
There were high hopes for this pilot project. It's supposed to be a proof of concept for a mass vaccination clinic. We even got a tour of the setup a couple of days ago. Public health workers at vaccine stations ready to vaccinate 250 frontline healthcare workers and prove it can be done safely and efficiently, as long as there is supply, which dwindled today to the point where the province had to tell the city to cease operations just 2 days into the pilot project. I spoke with the GM of Emergency Management for the City of Toronto, Fire Chief Matthew Pegg, about what this means for our vaccine trajectory.
Obviously, we're profoundly disappointed that this has been necessary, and I'm sure every Torontonian is disappointed. Frankly, I think every Canadian is disappointed. But our City of Toronto Immunization Task Force is continuing very much hard at work, and we will continue to be. So over the period of time where our operations have been paused, we will continue to work hard to put all of the plans in place to not only reopen this clinic, but to open our network of clinics and our network of vaccination services that are planned. And all of that, of course, is dependent upon vaccine availability.
A lot of people are going to be discouraged tonight hearing this news. What do you say to them?
This vaccination program and immunization program is our beacon of hope. It is the light. And, I really just want to say thank you to everyone for their patience and their understanding. This is a temporary roadblock or a bump in the road, but we're working hard. I have every confidence that the federal government and our colleagues at the provincial government are going to solve these vaccine availability issues in short order, and we'll be back up and running, still very much focused on being able to offer every single resident and every single Canadian a vaccine in the very shortest amount of time possible.
It was the Moderna vaccine that was being administered here. The shortage issue is with the Pfizer vaccine. The city was notified by the province that they would be reallocating their Moderna supply due to the Pfizer delay. This evening, Toronto Public Health packed up what was left and they cleared anything of real value from the building. But the main infrastructure of the clinic is going to stay put. Essentially, they're just turning off the lights tonight so they can flip them back on and hit the ground running as soon as supply is replenished. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Premier Doug Ford today voicing his frustration over the delay in shipments, even calling on the U.S. for help. The slowdown means priority in the province when it comes to who gets the vaccine next will have to shift. And that target date for vaccinating everyone in long-term care may not be met. Lorena Redekop reports.
It's troubling. It's a massive concern.
The Premier on news that next week's Pfizer-BioNTech shipment will be zero. The company is working to upgrade its capacity. So what would he do as Prime Minister?
I'd be on that phone call every single day. I'd be up that guy's yin-yang so far with a firecracker he wouldn't know what hit him. Man, we got to be on these guys like a blanket. I'd be outside that guy's house.
He suggested the U.S. send 1 million emergency doses to Canada, given that there's a Pfizer-BioNTech plant in Michigan, though infection rates from COVID-19 south of the border are worse than here.
And that's a direct message to President Biden. Help out your neighbor. You want us all to get along, hunky-dory, kumbaya? Help us out. I'm asking you for help.
Ontario's vaccines will now only go to those at greatest risk, people in long-term care and retirement homes and fly-in communities, plus giving second doses. The province says almost 225,000 shots have been given, more than 83,000 of them in long-term care homes, 25,000 in retirement homes, meaning less than half of the total doses. People in all long-term care homes in the 4 COVID hot zones have received their first dose. That's Toronto, Peel, York, and Windsor. Homes in 3 other regions, Ottawa, Simcoe, Muskoka, and Durham, are also finished. But vaccinations have only happened in around 40% of all Ontario long-term care homes. And the province may not meet its goal to get the first dose into all of those homes by mid-February.
Obviously, it's going to slow down what we can do. We're going to be really close one way or the other. We're going to push hard to see if we can actually get it all done. And if we can't, it will be because we simply don't have enough vaccines.
The province says it will reallocate the Moderna vaccine to more areas, and it's increasing the timing for the second dose of Pfizer to 6 weeks for anyone not in a long-term care or retirement home. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
There was a lower number of COVID-19 cases reported in Ontario today, but that may be due to a technical error here in Toronto. There were 1,913 cases recorded today, the first time below 2,000 since late December. But Minister of Health Christine Elliott says Toronto Public Health is likely under-reporting its number of cases. Just 550 new cases were logged in Toronto. That's much lower than the 800 to 1,000 Toronto has been reporting over the last few days. Now, testing in the province is also way down. Just some 34,000 tests completed. That's about half of total capacity. A dramatic scene unfolded today at the site of a group of heritage buildings in the West Donlands. Friends of the Foundry showed up to protest the building's demolition. In October, the province used a special power to bypass planning authorities and public consultation. As Chris Glover reports, people are vowing to protest there daily.
Early morning protesters already feeling ignored, today physically shielded from the ongoing demolition of the Foundry.
This is for the debris.
It's for the debris, then why didn't you do the site?
Lionel, call it, Lionel, call it. I don't know.
Protesters not buying the debris reason, especially after yesterday. They watched through the fence as the provincial government started to demolish the heritage building.
Powerless, you know. This is a government that says they're for the people, but they have not consulted a single person in this community.
Around 100 years ago, the Dominion Wheel and Foundries Company built train wheels here. The city designated the defunct space a heritage site in 2004. But now more than 9,000 people have signed a petition to stop its demolition.
And the reason why it's so important to the community is because it built sort of an anchor for all the development that happened around it.
But the provincial government owns the land, and in October used a special power to bypass the city's planning office and forego public consultations, using adjacent sites to build retail space and residential towers. And while the province pledges affordable housing units will be part of the rebuild, no development plan for the site has even been submitted to the city.
We've asked the province to halt all demolition activity.
Last night, the local councillor was there. She says the city solicitor is considering seeking an injunction before the council meeting February 2nd. Still, the province says the demolition is moving ahead.
You know, this property belongs to the people of Ontario, and we should have a say in what happens to it. It's not Doug Ford's private property.
NDP MPP Chris Glover, who is no relation to me, says the Ford government has its priorities wrong.
In the middle of a state of emergency, in the middle of a pandemic, and this is what Doug Ford is focusing on, it's absolutely appalling.
While some are already grieving the loss of the building with flowers, the fight for others is far from over.
So this should be a big lesson for the entire province that this could happen to you tomorrow. It's happening to us today.
In a statement from the Minister of Municipal Affairs office today, they said that a heritage impact assessment was conducted on the site, and it determined that this site is not of provincial significance. Well, it turns out it is significant to some of the people who live around here, and while the province is vowing to continue demolition, These protesters are vowing to continue demonstrating here at this demolition site. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police have arrested and charged a 24-year-old man with the city's first murder of the year. Last Wednesday, police responded to reports of a stabbing in an apartment building on Eglinton near Midland Avenue. Police arrived on scene to find people performing CPR on the victim. 25-year-old Mohammed Jalani of Minnesota later died in hospital. Police have charged Guled Mohammed with second-degree murder. Toronto police updating a murder today where they say it appears a neighborhood and not the person was targeted. 33-year-old Shane Stanford was gunned down in early October while driving home from work. Police have arrested 2 people, but as Greg Ross reports, they're now looking for a third.
At a press conference this morning, police released photos of a man they say may have been involved in the shooting of Shane Shannon Stanford. Police believe this suspect was with Raheem McLaughlin, who has already been charged with first-degree murder in Stanford's death.
Third suspect can be described as male brown, light complexion, mid-20s, approximately 5 foot 10 inches in height, with a thin build.
According to police reports, Stanford was in his car late in the evening of October 7th.
Shane lived in the area and was simply returning home from work.
Police say Stanford had just finished a shift at the YMCA. While driving through the Lawrence Manor neighborhood, another vehicle began chasing him and the occupants opened fire. Stanford was hit in the back of the head before his car crashed into the side of a house. Police say McLaughlin was the owner of the suspect vehicle, but sold it just days after the shooting.
We do not know the person who purchased this vehicle. The person who purchased the vehicle may have no knowledge that the vehicle was involved in this offense.
The car police are searching for is a 2005 or 2006 white 4-door Infiniti with tinted windows. Police say there were other unique features that would make this car easily identifiable.
Has tinted windows, gold-colored rims, and gold trim under the driver and passenger doors.
The motive for this shooting is still unclear.
I can say that Shane himself was not targeted specifically as an individual. At this point in the investigation, we're still open to the possibility that it was in relation to the area, but I can't say that definitively at this point.
Police have also charged a 17-year-old girl with accessory after the fact to murder. She can't be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
I never wanted to have to leave Canada. All these things come back to COVID and it's super frustrating.
After the break, the pandemic is getting in the way of some people applying for or receiving their permanent resident status. Hear more from one woman who is being forced to move coming up. Plus,
oh, so what's this? Some Arctic air making an appearance tonight? I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Is it sticking around? And if not, when's it coming back? Answering that question after the break.
We've all experienced COVID-19 delaying aspects of our life, but for some, it's meant having to leave the country or not being able to enter it. Angelina King shares the story of one woman whose quest for permanent resident status is now stuck in limbo.
Up until last week, Catherine Scott worked here, but now she's dropping off her keys since her work permit expired. In a few weeks, she'll have to leave the country.
I feel a little bit deflated because my plans are not going how I wanted them to.
Scott's work permit expired before she was able to apply for permanent residency. She's still waiting on paperwork from her home country of Australia, which she needs before she can apply. She says COVID is to blame. Because of that, she missed the opportunity to get a bridging permit, which would allow her to continue working while her application was being looked at. Instead, she has to move to the UK to live with her parents while she waits.
I never wanted to have to leave Canada. All these things come back to COVID and it's super frustrating.
She says she's likely just a few months shy of being able to apply and wishes there was something the Canadian government could do. In a statement, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada said in part, as the pandemic unfolded, IRCC encouraged temporary residents who were in Canada to renew their visitor status or work or study permits to maintain their legal status. But Scott's type of work permit can only be extended under very specific situations.
That's happening on a daily basis. We've had to come up with a lot of innovative solutions for clients to try to either keep them in status or restore their status.
Immigration lawyer Mario Bellissimo says there are thousands like Scott, either having to leave the country, can't enter it, or are in limbo. In the third quarter of 2020, Canada welcomed 40,000 immigrants, 61% fewer than the same time the year before, according to Statistics Canada.
We're 30% below the targeted migration entry for 2020. And as you know, immigration fuels every sector of our society.
To make up for that gap, Canada has set a goal to admit more than 400,000 immigrants this year, and Scott hopes she'll be one of them. But she and others will still be up against the pandemic, and experts say it might take a couple of years to get back on track. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Partly cloudy tonight with a few flurries developing overnight. The wind chill making it feel like -7 in downtown Toronto right now. Colette Kennedy joins us now. And Colette, temperatures definitely dropping tonight, feeling much colder than the past couple of nights.
Yes, Kelda, we do have some Arctic air that's going to join us tonight, whether we'd like it or not. And we've been pretty spoiled through this month of January, so it's going to take a little bit of adjusting, especially tomorrow morning with that cold air in place and still some winds giving us significant wind chills. The winds have been driving some of that lake effect, much of it to the east of Georgian Bay now, but still dealing with some of that. And some of those flurries making their way overnight at times coming through the GTA as well. But that Arctic air that's coming on through, this is kind of just a preview, and then really it's not going to come back again till the weekend, and then it's going to stick around a bit. We're kind of in between systems, so one that's sort of departing and another one that's going to come in tomorrow night and into Thursday morning. So highs for today, look at Ottawa, the standout there at -8. Elsewhere we had more reasonable temperatures closer to the freezing mark. You can see those banners, the lake effect coming off with the westerly flow, and then you can see the shift, which shows you that the winds will be shifting direction a little bit as well. Well, a little more than a little bit. Now, with our skies, we had a little bit of sunshine today, likely getting into the variable skies again tomorrow. So at times a little more cloud cover, at times we get a little bit more sunshine, but chilly start, that's for sure. And even into the afternoon, we're going to struggle. We'll still be a few degrees below freezing with our daytime high. Wednesday night, so the winds will let up a little bit, but Wednesday night they're going to ramp up again as our next system will be moving in. As this one pushes through, expect a little bit of light snow accompanying it. Could be just a little heavier towards the Niagara region there, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in terms of accumulations in a moment, and then some lake effect coming on the backside of that one as well. So the shift in the winds, but see how, just look at the colors. The darker purples means we're getting into some stronger winds, so that's coming in again tomorrow night into Thursday by about midday Thursday. hopefully starting to ease up a bit. Snowfall potential here. We are talking about a little bit of additional tonight from the lake effect, but that's something totally different from what comes through with that next system. A few centimeters are possible, especially north of the 401, and a little bit more significant perhaps there towards the Niagara region. Overnight tonight, look at this, feeling like minus 13 for you into Windsor, and tomorrow, notice that temperature. It is a struggle. It is going to be a cooler day, minus 3 for the high, and you'll see similar conditions in terms of the daytime high. Minus 7 tonight for Toronto, but minus 3 again, getting some of that sunshine, so enjoy it when you do have it. And then Thursday, the temperatures go in the other direction. Once again, as that system passes through, behind it is when that Arctic air returns and it decides to hang out for a bit. Kilda.
All right, thanks so much, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
After the break, a Toronto restaurant owner is included in a new United Nations cookbook.
I enjoy feeling the textures and the smells. It's a very special dish in my family.
Yasmin De Leon came to Toronto as a refugee from Mexico. Now, one of her family recipes is showcased in a cookbook to commemorate the 70th anniversary of Canada's UN Refugee Agency. My chat with her coming up. The UN Refugee Agency in Canada has released a free digital cookbook to celebrate its 70th anniversary. Tastes from Home includes the favorite recipes and personal stories of refugees who have made Canada home. One of them is Yasmin De Leon, who lives here in Toronto and is the owner of a Mexican restaurant. I spoke to her about her journey, the recipes she chose, and what food means to her.
When you are a refugee, when you're a person fleeing a place of conflict or fleeing somewhere where you're not safe, the fear is in your bones. The fear is so pervasive.
Yasmin De Leon was only 4 when she fled Mexico with her family, crossing over to the U.S. and then making their way to Canada. But after 6 years on the refugee wait list, they went back to Mexico. Months later, her father was murdered.
So then my mom packed us all up and put us in a car and she just drove here.
Toronto has been her home ever since. 3 years ago, she realized a dream, opening her own Mexican restaurant, Comali Canela. Tell me about the food you remember growing up with.
I always remember the smell of corn. The smell of corn is something that I think it's like an infant memory. My mom is from a small town and my mom grew up cooking her own nixtamal and grinding her corn. So when we were traveling and we had no home and we had no family and we had no land, she would try to recreate these dishes.
To give a sense of home.
Yeah, and I'm lucky that I have her because she's my repository.
When the UN Refugee Agency in Canada asked her to provide a recipe for its new cookbook, she chose one close to her heart, tamales.
I enjoy feeling the textures and the smells. The first reason I chose it is because it's a very special dish in my family. It's because it's very labor intensive and time consuming. It is often a dish only prepared for Christmas or when we really beg my mom. And it's a dish that reminds me of family because it's a dish that we would do together. And then there was that smell of corn, right? I pushed the corn through here.
She also loved that many other cultures have something similar to tamales, so she sees the food as a symbol of unity. Besides De Leon, the digital cookbook features the personal stories and recipes of 13 other former refugees from around the world. Why is it so important for you and other refugees to preserve these recipes?
Because we leave everything behind. We leave our family, we leave our homes, we leave everything that we know. We have nothing. The only thing that we have are these recipes that then we share with our children. So we're able to continue our tradition, our culinary culture, and we're able to teach others who we are. I think that the majority of cultures show love through food. When I feed people, I'm not just feeding their bodies, I'm giving you love.
And you can get a copy of the free digital cookbook by heading to unhcr.ca. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And we leave you now with a spectacular view of the Northern Lights captured by a local photographer in Finland yesterday. Stay warm and have a great night, everyone.